I'd like to start this off by saying, Patrick, you're an idiot, and I swear to God I'm moving out one of these days. He's the reason all this happened. I was asleep in my room one night when 3 quick knocks at my door shook me awake. I stirred in bed, but before I could respond, I heard my doorknob jiggle. I glanced up and saw the face of my roommate. Patrick was a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside a dumbass, but perhaps the key to him was women. He'd literally give his kidney if it meant he could plow a broad dumb enough to feel sorry for him. That's how he got most of his girls. Good old-fashioned pity. Anyways, he walked up inches away from the foot of my bed, and I noticed his blonde mop of hair that danced on the back of his slender neck was disheveled. He also lacked a shirt and pants. "Dude, what the fuck?" I screamed. He looked down and smirked as if only just realizing he was half naked. He looked back to me and his eyes were bloodshot red and halfway shut. This fucker. "Oh, come on, man, you smoked without me again?" I exclaimed. "What? No, what's her name?" But her face, Tiffany brought some of her own. "Who's?" "No point. Point is, I need you to go down to the liquor store for me," said Patrick, cutting me off as he steadily rocked back and forth on his heels to toes. "Pat, it's late, man. I was sleeping." I know, he said quickly, anticipating my protest. This wasn't the first time he'd come into my room at ungodly hours asking me to do things for him. However, he'd set a personal best tonight. 2:30 a.m. "Look, I'd go down there myself, but I got company," chuckled Patrick. "More like if you go down there, Nick's gonna kick your ass," I smirked, sleep slipping away from me. Said Patrick dryly. His mood had changed completely. "Pat, what you and Nick bet on anyway?" I asked curiously. I really should have asked how much he owed him and how, judging from the look on his face, a Lakers game. Please just go before she gets bored, bro." He goes inside his underwear and pulls out a wad of cash. He tries handing it over. I look at him as if he sprouted a second head. He tossed my covers off me as I got up out of my bed, avoiding the ball sweat-stained money, and slipped my pants on while I put my feet in my Bugs Bunny house slippers. "I'll use my card and you owe me," I said, and shut the door before he could respond with his usual, "I got you when I get paid, bro," which had become his catchphrase at this point. I walked out into the living room and saw a young woman, maybe 20 or so, sitting on our couch. Shoes off, she smiled at me. "Aw, you're such a good brother, taking him in when no one else would." I was tempted to show her my ID where it said Myers and not Winiger. I smiled at it though, then left. I got to the liquor store in no time. It was only 2 blocks away from our apartment complex, and when I reached the double doors, you'll never guess who held them open for me. "Jeff, my boy," exclaimed Nick once he got a good look at my face from underneath my hood. He smiled. Nick naturally had a raspy voice, which, hearing it at night, along with what he said, made it come off as creepy, whether or not intentional. "Pat stopped drinking or something? He hasn't been back since he lost our bet." I didn't want to get involved in whatever they had going on, so I just shrugged my shoulders. My jet black hair fell in my face as I did so. Nick looked at me oddly. I mean, he knew Patrick was my roommate, but we're never joined at the hip. So me not knowing his whereabouts was completely plausible. His smile returned. "Tell him to come and see me." He watched as I pushed a strand of hair out of my face. "Get a haircut, hippie." "So you won't get bored, I'll skip over the part where I got a 6-pack of beer, 2 liters of vodka, and the cashier's phone number, and cut right into the chase. I was 1 block away from home. I turned the corner and saw Nick. He's leaned against a pole, A black dog sat at his side, staring at me like a piece of fresh meat. "Jeff, my boy!" As he stretched out every letter in my name, this threw me for a loop. Did he wait on me? What the hell was with that dog? As if he read my mind. "Don't worry about Dalia, she's friendly." A nervous chuckle escaped my lips as I responded, "What's it like in New York City?" Nick laughed, but the laugh failed to comfort me. "See, man, that's why I like you," he said. "You're funny. Patrick, not so much." He interrupted me. "I just want to do a good deed. Help you with your groceries." I was reluctant, and he was persistent. Take a wild guess as to who won the tug-of-war. You could hear the steady click-clack of Dalia's unkept nails as they scratched against the tiles in the hallway which led to my apartment. I looked over to Nick, smiled, and thanked him for his unwanted help. He didn't look like as if he was gonna go anywhere, so I fished in my pocket for my keys. That's when Nick called out for me. The sudden sound of his already uneasy voice was enough to make me stop in my tracks. "Knock on it. I want him to come to the door." His sentence was enough for me to pray that Patrick would be the dipshit he always was and not answer the door. I knocked hard 3 times on our apartment door, not trying to anger him by knocking lightly, and we waited. At the time, I hadn't factored in that Patrick was high, and he always had cravings for large, sorry vegans, meat lovers pizza. As we heard the doorknob turn, I mentally body slammed Patrick. He clearly didn't look through the peephole first. The door flung open. You could see Patrick standing in the threshold, a couple $100 poked out of his wallet, and he had a stupid grin on his face. "I hope you have change for hundreds," said Patrick loud. I heard a cackle come from inside the apartment. When Patrick actually saw who was at the door, I'll never forget it. He went pale white, as if he'd seen a ghost. Before I knew it, Patrick yanked me in the apartment by my jacket sleeve and shut the door behind us, as his chest heaved in and out rapidly. "Pat, what the fuck's going on, and how much do you owe him?" I shrieked, just wanting to get it over with, even if that meant giving him all our rent money. But this is where shit hit the fan, folks. "None," said Patrick. "None," I said. "Nothin'? What do you mean, none? You owe him something, or he wouldn't have followed me home," I screamed. We could both hear laughter from the other side of the door as we heard Nick's baritone voice. "He knows exactly what I want." His voice sounded manic. Patrick looked at me. "I mean, he doesn't want money. He wants my soul." Under any normal circumstances, I would have socked him in the jaw. But Nick's behavior was odd. "So say I do believe you, why the hell would you take a bet like that?" He shrugged his shoulders. I was drunk at Cavern's Tavern a week ago. Nick bet $1,500 that the Lakers would lose fourth quarter tied up. Bastards get a foul, miss 1 free throw, hits the other, game over. I only took the bet because he had the money right in front of me. I thought he was nuts, okay? I mean, he wanted my soul. What kind of shit is that? Nick spoke out again, this time calm, almost like he was sedated. "Patrick, Emily's gonna be in a lot of pain the next time I see you, and you're not giving me what we bet on. I would have gave you the cash right then and there, but what can I say? Fate owed me one." I could tell he had a smile on his face. His footsteps slowly started to saunter away down the hallway. The footsteps stopped. Once I heard a door open, followed by a short conversation. Then grunts, and finally we heard Nick's voice again. "Open the door or I'll slit the bitch's throat." Patrick was content on letting the person die. I, on the other hand, sat atop a cloud and levitated above him because I opened the door with zero hesitation and stepped out into the hallway. Patrick close behind me. We both saw Nick. He stood behind our neighbor from 4G. Nick had his knife up on her throat. He had let her go once he saw us in the hallway. She scrambled back into her apartment and slammed the door behind her. Nick approached us. The big black dog by his side had his eyes locked on me. Everything in me told me to run. Save face, but I knew I wasn't going anywhere. That lady called the cops. You need to go. As the words came out of my mouth, I realized I hadn't registered what I had just said. My eyes were still locked with the dog's. I was transfixed by those red eyes of hers and rows of jagged teeth. I'm so sorry, said the girl. I just got scared with all the noise I heard and the yelling. Nick nodded his head. It wasn't seconds before he drove the tip of his jagged blade through her neck. The gurgling noise she made as she slapped at his face was heartbreaking. It made me sick to hear him grunt as he thrust and stabbed her over and over and over again. He left his knife embedded in her neck. It was almost a full decapitation. The walls behind her mutilated body was painted in a crimson blood. I wanted to kill this fucker. And as that thought stopped by in my mind, so did another. Patrick had a gun in his room. I could run to his room and end this night once and for all. I looked at Patrick, and I'd be an idiot if I'd say he was crying just because Nick cut off his finger. We just witnessed something brutal. It'd shake up anybody, especially two suburban kids whose only claim to violence was telling backhanded compliments. I'm glad Patrick didn't know what I was about to do. He has a terrible poker face. I looked Nick in the eye for the second time that night. His eyes were as red as his dog's. I turned as quick as I could. A laugh chased me as I made it through the threshold of our hallway leading to our rooms. I closed and locked Patrick's door behind me as I searched around. When I find his gun, I was gonna blow Nick's head off. I searched through the drawers and caught fire with the third one and remembered my roommate's a dipshit, so of course he kept the gun fully loaded in his sock drawer, but I couldn't have been more grateful. Bang! The initial thwack at the door made me jump. This reaction caused the gun to fall out of my hand and hit the floorboards. At first I thought it was Nick until the second hit to the door, much lower, the bottom of the door splintered open and I saw Dila's demonic red eyes stare back at me. It wiggled through the hole and leapt at me. To say her fangs were sharp would be an insult. I felt Dila's teeth tear through my muscle tissue and touch bone. Come on, girl. Dila trotted out of Patrick's room and collapsed at Nick's feet. I heard an inhuman wail as I struggled to my feet. Dila was a good doggy. The bitch was still able to trot away from me and die at her owner's side. As I emerged from Patrick's room, I clung onto the threshold into the living room and made sure the gun was trained on Nick. Patrick breathed a sigh of relief as he hopped up from his seated position on the couch. You're gonna fucking get it now, man, Jeff. Patrick gestured to me with his eyes. I cocked the gun and had every intention of killing him. No injury in the world would convict us, but I found even with a loaded gun in my hand, I just simply couldn't pull the trigger. Pat, go down the hall to McLaren's and call the cops. I went back and forth with Patrick only for a few seconds. His rage toward Nick subsided when I reminded him of his slowly decomposing finger. He ran out of the apartment, and now aside from the woman's mutilated corpse that rested on my couch, it was just me and him. I wasn't a killer, but he was. Do you know what ritual I was trying to perform? No, and I don't give a shit if I'm being honest. But you should all give a shit, Jeff, my boy. I'm taking power beyond what man was supposed to have. Nick ripped the knife out of the woman's neck and brandished it. I could see the steel blade was caked in her blood. Immortality. No more words were exchanged between us. Nick rushed me. He took a swing at me, but I ducked the attack. Before I could get a shot in, Nick got me in a bear hug. Then he bit me. He bit down on the side of my throat. His hot breath cascaded across my neck as his teeth bit at my skin. A desperate hit to his nose with my forehead got him off me, and a hard kick to his midsection made him reel back. Fuck! I clamped my hand down around my neck to put pressure on the wound. I looked over at Nick and he had a piece of my flesh between his teeth, with a chuckle at my expense. He chewed my bit-off skin and swallowed it. He took a step towards me. I closed my eyes and I fired off a defending round. I peeked and it hit a lampshade. I fired again. This time I hit him in the shoulder. I fired again and caught him in the gut. For good measure, I fired the fourth shot in his left shoulder. Nick's body fell to the ground in a bloody heap. I dropped the gun as I heard police sirens start to crescendo. I moved to my window and gazed out into the night. I saw my town's blue and red cop cars at the end of my block as they sped to my apartment building. I turned back to Nick, and he was nowhere in sight. Just a bloody trail to my front door was left behind. Also left behind was a message written in his own blood, a message that told me this nightmare had only just begun. The message was simple, only 2 words. It worked. Hey guys, thanks for listening to today's story. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share for more. The links to the Facebook page, the Twitter, and the Instagram will all be in the description below, as well as the source for today's story and the music. Go check out the original writer of the story and the source of the music. Also, I enjoy making these videos. It's a kind of outlet to take my mind off stuff, so I hope you enjoy listening to them as much as I do making them. So I'm gonna keep making them. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and share for more. And go follow all the social medias. Check out all the sources and stuff. Also, if you have any other creepypastas you want me to read, send them my way. And if you have any of your own you want me to read, send them my way as well. And until next time in the Deadly Zone, stay deadly and stay spooky.